Well, at ease, paratroopers, and welcome back to the Enduring Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, retired Army Staff Sergeant Kevin Kidder. Today's guest is U.S. Army Major retired Wayne Stiles. He was my company commander in Afghanistan and a man who has been a steady example of what grounded leadership looks like. In this conversation, we talk about Wayne's upbringing, his journey through both the Air Force and Army, both enlisted and officer, what leadership in combat actually costs, and what happens when you take the uniform off and still have to know who you are. We also get into faith, identity, transition, and the kind of legacy that matters when no one's clapping. So, wherever you're listening from, I hope you settle in for this one. Here's my conversation with Wayne. Let's get to it. All right. Welcome to the show, Mr. Stiles. How are you?
I'm outstanding.
Good. So, ladies and gentlemen, a very special guest with me is my company commander in Afghanistan. Someone who's been a big part of my life and a champion for all things Kevin, which can be a daunting task, but I truly appreciate your support. I actually have a couple stories. Um, I think you had just come to the company when we were at Fort Campbell. You were having lunch with your wife at Burger King, and I was there with Appleby and Rempala, and we were a table off to the side, and I saw you guys hold hands, bow your heads, and say a prayer before you ate. And I didn't understand the significance of it at the time because my walk with God hadn't really started. But looking back, that just a simple moment to say thank you for food, even at a fast food place, means everything. And that has struck me as something I remember about you as a man, um, someone who's always rooted and grounded in his faith. Um, Another story, the MPs were on the other side of the chew, and I was talking with the guys, just kind of doing my leadership thing. He kind of pulled me off to the side afterward, and you mentioned to me how much you enjoyed that I took the time to get to know my soldiers on a personal level and um, not just be a sergeant. And that really meant a lot to me because I wanted to be the kind of leader that when the uniform was off or when we're out of the military, I still had a good rapport and relationship, and it's paid dividends. And then the third story is you coming to my retirement party at Fort Bragg. My mom lit up when she saw you. It meant the world to her. It meant the world to me, but it meant a lot to my mom that someone would travel such a far way uh, just for a little party to celebrate me. And that's just kind of the character and man and leader that you are. And I've truly appreciated how you show up in little ways and big ways.
Cool.
All right. So, as I've shared with all the guests, almost a year ago now in April, I was attending a conference in Los Angeles, and the first breakout session I went to was held by Brett Ledbetter, and the topic was asking better questions. And at the end, I got to meet him. He's a great guy, he's a mental performance coach, and he was plugging his new book, 365 Questions to Get to Know Yourself and Your Team Better. So, I knew when I started the podcast that I wanted to take his idea, which was when you would meet with clients, to break the ice, you ask them a question, something they're not prepared for. And I've made that my own. So every guest gets a question, and you picked question 101. And I don't do video, but he is wearing a 101st Airborne Division polo, always represents the 101 very well. So this is an off the wall question. It's two parts. Are you ready for it?
Cool.
All right. It says, how did your 12-year-old self view your mom, and what's different about how you view her today?
So my mom went through challenges, and at 12 years old, you don't know. I don't know who my biological father is. I've never met him. I've only heard stories about them, none real positive. Uh, a survivor. That's how I viewed my mom. Um, an authoritarian. If you mouthed off, you would get smacked across the mouth, and that's just that simple. Very disciplined. Like, yeah, I mean, these are the rules, and if you don't follow them, here are the consequences, and we're not going to bend the consequences. How do I view her now? Well, she passed away from cancer many years ago. Give anything? To have another conversation? Because there's much more understanding now that I got my own kids. And granted, they're adults now, but I remember when they were teenagers,
Mhm.
and even still now today, it's like some things come out of their mouths, and I go, "Oh my gosh, if I ever did that, my mom would knock me halfway across the room." And it's kind of hard to get them to understand that. Really, it takes their aunts to say, "Yeah, you might want to slow down." There, I try to be a lot more patient. Um, but my mom, when I say survivor, she did what it took to take care of us three kids, despite a lack of energy and help from the men that were in her life. So,
Wow.
good
That's a
question.
oh, thank you. Thank you, Brett. That's guys, this is what these conversations are about. They're open and honest, and we're gonna have a very good, open, honest, transparent conversation with someone who has an incredible story to share. We'll kind of get into the meat and potatoes, early life. You know, where did you grow up? What kind of kid were you?
Okay, so grew up Pelley, New York, farming community, approximately 30 minutes south of Syracuse off of Route 81. Uh, Graduated bottom of my class as a D minus. Couldn't wait to leave home because the man that was in our life, meaning direct man that was in our life, my stepfather, um, knocked the crap out of us kids. He was a police officer. And to give you an idea, I went to a private school for a year because I struggled in public school with grades, but never got in trouble. Went to private school, and I was an A student, but I was in trouble every single day. And the rule was 8 lashes with a belt for every attention I brought home. I'll never forget that I brought home 8.
Mm,
So,
okay. So the parental influences and then the school, but are there any values or early influences that shaped the man you eventually became?
yeah, so I see life very black and white. I
Mhm.
don't see gray, and I think that has to do with, in fifth grade, I was lucky I had a friend, Danny Rollings, who was like, "Hey, you want to come to church with me? My dad's pastor, mom's Sunday school teacher." And before that moment, I didn't know what church was. And so I started going, and there came a point in my time when Mrs. Rowling was like, "Hey, does anybody here," and talking to the whole class, feel like they want to follow Christ? And sometimes I can't look back and go, "Why did I do that?" But I know this, that it's directed my life, though I've strayed and I've screwed up and I've sinned. But I have a very simple viewpoint because nobody ever breathed into my life and said, "Hey, Wayne, now that you're a Christian, let's sit down and talk. Let me show you what prayer looks like and why you need to do it. Let me show you why you read your Bible." Because you've heard it said before, "Hey, who's reading their Bible?" And everybody
Mhm.
raised their hand. I'm talking about men our age, and everybody wants that gold sticker. But the reality is, the question should be asked is, what are you reading? What
Right.
questions do you have? What are you learning? What do you want the rest of us to know? And these are the things that I've learned in the past 5, 10 years.
Wow. That's fantastic. What first drew you to military service and why'd you go to the Air Force route?
Okay, so uh, seventh grade, I knew I wanted to be a Marine. My best, one of my buddies at church, so we call him Stormin Norman Stitzel, uh, came a Marine, came home in that uniform, freaking looked sharp. Marines are like, "Yeah, we'll get you to boot camp in October of '84." Air Force comes along in April, which is 2 months before high school graduation, and says, "We can get you to boot camp 10 July 1984." And knowing the home life that I had, I was like, "I'll do it, whatever." And here's the crazy thing. So yes, I'm a D minus in high school. I scored really high on ASVAB, but I took a job that required a 31. I
Okay.
didn't sit down and go, like I tell kids all the time now, "Hey, let's look at the computer and let's see what really piques you and makes you go, man, I want to do that." I just was like, I want that job. I want to get out of the house. And literally 2 weeks after high school graduation, I was gone.
Wow. And you enlisted.
Yeah, absolutely. So I served. So my service is 84 to 88 enlisted Air Force, 88 to 90 Army National Guard enlisted. Came back in the Air Force in 2001 as an officer, served till 2007, 2007 to 14 Army officer, and then taught JRTC from 2014 to I think 19. I can't remember. Maybe it was 18. So
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So early on when you first enlisted, at that point in your life, what did serving mean to you?
simply get away from home and try to make something of myself because I didn't know Jack.
Mhm.
I didn't. I was just some young punk kid that wanted to prove he was more than what he was shown at home.
Yeah, I get that. When I joined at 19, I turned 20 in basic. I had done a year at Eastern Michigan University. I failed out, zero point 0.8 GPA. I mean, that is a conscious decision to do the wrong thing on a regular basis. Luckily, I got an A in theory of baseball, and I think I got a B in my theater class. But yeah, my dad was just here uh, right before Christmas, and we were talking about that. He was asking how Ty was doing at college. I was like, he's doing better than I was. uh, but yeah, then I left Michigan. I moved to Washington State and was with my mom. Went to community college, played baseball, and my stepdad. He was just like, hey man, I was in a very similar situation at your age, and I joined the army. I was a medic. I was in Germany. It really straightened me out. What do you think? I was like, no. And he was, I mean, he's the most patient man I'd ever met. Um, and eventually he wore me down, and we went down and talked to the recruiter, and uh, things obviously worked out. But boy, I was adamant about not being in the military. And luckily, it was a great thing for me, and I met wonderful people such as yourself, and I get to have these conversations and share stories, and kind of be a little bit of a champion for people who don't have a voice or don't know how to use their voice right now. So, which you have been spectacular and very supportive with. I think 2 months ago we had a really long conversation on the status of the transition and getting out of the military. I still have all of our notes. I've reached out to state and federal level congressmen. Haven't heard anything back. Obviously, the shutdown and stuff was perfectly timed, but that fire's still there, and I'm still reaching
Good.
out. As you mentioned, you served both in the Air Force and the Army. What made you kind of switch between the branches?
Okay, so uh, as an officer specifically, you know, I remember I was a school teacher making 25 grand a year, zero benefits, zero health. And I had a couple kids, and I'm like, this isn't going to cut it. So I just looked at my wife one day and was like, hey, what do you think? And she was like, I don't know. And so I went and saw the recruiter, and I said, well, here's the deal. You got me, but you got to sell my wife. And the funny thing is the thing that I think she didn't want to do was the thing that she liked most, which was the travel, to
Mm,
be able to see different parts of the world at the expense of somebody else, so to speak. But Air Force was the first choice. I didn't even think about the Army back then. And honestly, I had success in the National Guards. I don't know why. But I did, like I said, I did a couple years at Seymour Johnson in North Carolina. And then I did a year in Korea on a solo tour, and then did a few 3 years up in Alaska. And it just Air Force is very different. It's very politically correct, which I'm not. It's very like the best way I can describe it is when I was a junior officer as a lieutenant, we were struggling with PT scores because PT back then was you just did it on your own and you had to take a bike test. And if you didn't pass the bike test, your name went on the list. And our unit just was sucking at it. So I looked at my colonel and like, sir, respectfully, why don't we just go run 2 freaking miles? And if people can do it in this certain time, you can look at your leadership and go, maybe the bike test isn't really valid. And I got pulled in the office by the captain and I got crushed. He's like, PT is for fun. That is it. Nothing more. Get over yourself. Fast forward to Korea, PT all of a sudden becomes important. I ran a fitness center, so I was kind of in my prime. And I loved it because a lot of the leadership, and I've got a plaque out in the hallway that all those leaders signed, thanking me for what I did because PT wasn't that important. And all of a sudden, the Air Force is like, PT is important. And so now you got to get 19 units to be able to use your facility effectively. And that was my priority. Um, and then I got Air Force. It was okay, but there was just so much political correctness. You just we'll just leave it at political correctness. I had great leaders in the Air Force, don't get me wrong, and I'll name some of those later, but I was frustrated. And so the Army comes along and says, hey, we need people, time now. And so I looked at the wife and I said, here's the deal. I'm going to submit my packet, but you need to understand I'm going to deploy probably every other year, just from what I'm watching from the sidelines. And I remember getting called by the whoever from the Army and like, hey, when can you report to Fort freaking Leonard Wood? And I'm like, okay. And so, paperwork had to be all cut. Uh, I got out of it, and luckily, one of my great leaders, Colonel Borgert, he allowed me to follow an MP captain at Fort Richardson for a
Hmm.
month to just kind of get a flavor of what I was walking myself into. And then, boom, I'm going over to the Army at Fort Leonard Wood, where PT was important, and it was run very for officers even. It was just run very differently, which I liked. Um, so yeah,
Did you have any apprehension on changing jobs from the Air Force into the Army?
no, because I looked at Army being more of a challenge. I knew that getting an MP role, I get it, it's not a combat, whatever the name is today for infantry and the king of battle and all that stuff, but you're going to be out there doing stuff with people. I was food, fitness, and lodging, which, everybody knows how to do your business, which it didn't seem like, it seemed like you always had to bend over backwards because the customer's always right, even though the customer isn't always right. And just Air Force is just, I'm saying a lot. They're politically correct. And so, but whereas in the Army is very in your face, straightforward. This is how it's going to be. If you don't like it, well, guess what? It's still going to be that way. Get over yourself.
Yeah, I like that. What now? Once you put on the Army uniform and you were at Leonard Wood for the transition into the MP world, and then you got to shadow in Alaska. And you were there for a month before you got to Campbell.
Yeah, no, no, no. So Alaska, I was there for that last month in 2007. It was summertime. Literally, one day I'm in an Air Force uniform. The very next day, I go raise my right hand. I'm given the oath by an Army officer in an Army uniform, which I'm not even sure if I had it on right, because Air Force name tapes are different than Army. The first time I was at an Army post, this guy looked at me and goes, I think you got your name tape and your Army thing switched up wrong. Because I did it like the Air Force did it, like a
Mm.
dummy. I should have looked at the regs. So my wife and I and the kids jumped in our vehicle and we drove from Alaska down to Fort Leonard Wood. It took, I think, at least a week,
Oh
maybe a
wow.
little longer. Because we took our time. Um, and then Fort Leonard Wood was Captain Career Course.
Okay.
So it's get prepared for company command.
Okay, I like that. And was what was your first Army unit like when you were there full time?
That would have been, well, Big Red One, the MIT team. So I'm at Campbell. I'm sorry, I'm not at Campbell. I'm at Fort Leonard Wood, and the branch manager comes and sees you and says, What do you want to do for a job?" And I'm like, "Well," because he knew that I was where I was at in my career. I needed company command time because you can't
Hmm.
get promoted unless you got company command time. And he was offering me to stay there at basic training land. And honestly, I was like, okay, because then my family, we were all here together. But then they did the UCMJ class, and all they did was give examples of instructors getting in trouble at basic training.
Yeah.
And I called the management and I said, I don't care what happens. Tell me what else I got offered. He offered me the MIT team where you go and train Iraqis. So I was sent to the Big Red One, Camp Funston, and learned how to. I was part of an 11-man team. We were in see, I get Afghanistan, Iraq mixed up. Um, we're in a small little fob out in the middle of nowhere, about an hour west of Iran.
Wow.
The name will probably ring out because, yeah, because we were, what was the name of our fob in Afghanistan?
Rushmore.
Okay, Zulu, Fob Zulu. And it looked like Planet of the Apes. When we rolled in, there was a water tower that blown up, laying out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, we were out there. We had special forces in the area in our cop, and then we were attached to a like a cav unit, And every day we went and rolled trying to teach Iraqis how to do their jobs, which,
Hmm.
if you know, and really that job, me being there is why I got the company command, was because the experience was going to be the same.
Okay. So you got to go to both playgrounds in the sandbox. As a company commander in Afghanistan, what responsibilities weighed on you the most?
Okay, let me make sure I get it. Okay, asking soldiers to go out in danger day in day out, knowing that there's a long term impact. We've lost three soldiers. I'll try not to cry. Master Sergeant Mark Davies,
Yep.
without a doubt the hardest because I'm driving a dump truck. It's pouring rain, and I get this phone call, but I don't recognize the number. So I hit stop but something's telling me I got to call this person back. And so I pull off the road and I call, and it's a gentleman saying, "Hey, your name was on a list of people that Mark wanted to say, hey, I'm sorry." And I didn't know what to do other than cry
Right.
because Mark and I had talked numerous times, and we had formed a relationship in Afghanistan. Somebody you could confide in, talk to, and him give you advice as a senior NCO. And for me, the hardest part is knowing maybe I should have called one more time. Could have been one more time, but I went to his memorial, and it was amazing to see the lives that man impacted.
Hmm.
Many soldiers that came all across the country to that. We've lost, I don't know if the rank is right, but Sergeant Elizabeth Workamp.
I
That
did
one
not
was
know
hard
that.
because I talked to her dad, and I didn't totally understand. I mostly just kept my mouth shut and listened, but he shared the struggles that she had. We had a soldier that I remember giving Article 15 to, and forgive me, I don't remember the name. He was either a driver or mechanic, skinny white kid. He was doing illegal. He was doing Afghan drugs, and yes, we had every right to get him to Article 15. I often wonder, did we get him the help that he needed, though? Sure, the Article 15 is supposed to get your attention, but did we really get him the help that he needed? And so these things weigh on me. How about the day that the explosion happened, right?
Yeah.
We respond, we don't know what technically is going on. We had just finished practicing for graduation of the Afghan police, and you got, I think, five or six guys around me. We got General Delicon, and it's like you're trying to piece it together. And I remember saying, hey, let's get two people out at the ECP, or one person maybe, checking every freaking vehicle, because I was actually worried about a VBID coming in and taking everything out. And I remember pushing Josh out, Sergeant McCoskey, I think it was Sergeant McCoskey, and a few others out. Um, to this day, of course, I'm always going to second guess myself and say, well, why did you keep everybody around you like a PSD? Because at that I felt like General Delacon's life was in danger. I
Hmm.
felt like what was happening was to get him. He was the most important person in that area, and to take him out would have been a big deal. Um, so that's something I have to live with myself. There's not much I can do other than obviously continue to second guess it, and I'm sure other people second guessed it. So I know that something that really hit home was a bunch of suits came in from the Pentagon, and like '06 types, and they started asking questions because we had been blown up, and other people they brought anybody that had been part of an explosion. And you got Sergeant Mikowski. He raised his hand. The officer's like, "Yeah, what?" And he goes, "Hey, I don't understand this whole baseline thing because I was blown up several times in Iraq, and yet supposedly you have my baseline from after being blown up those times." And they went, you could just see it on their faces. It was an aw crap moment,
Yep.
and they were like, "I need this guy." And so Sergeant Milkowski went away for the
Wow.
rest of the tour. But some people thought, oh, yes, it hurt us. Absolutely
Yeah.
hurt us. But you know what? I was able to look myself in the mirror and say, you know what? If we get him the help he needs and it helps other soldiers out, then okay, that's a good decision.
I love that because that leads right into the next question. which is how did leadership in a combat environment change your perspective on decision making and accountability? Because you're in a very unique position for listeners that maybe didn't wear the uniform or spend much time downrange. As a company commander, everything is your responsibility, from a nut and bolt on a vehicle to the lives of the men and women under your care, and that is an enormous burden. If you have kids, you can understand it to an extent with 2 or 3 or 4 kids, but in an environment like that, you're talking dozens, if not hundreds of soldiers under your charge.
Yes, our company was, according to First Army was the largest in Afghanistan. 192,000. I'm sorry, 192 soldiers, not 190,000. My property was unreal. The brevity of the situation, right? Like, what's different? The enemy is all around you. Every
Mhm.
time you go out, whether it's a simple patrol or it's no kidding, we're going to go find the ID maker's place, which happened, I think, towards the end of our tour. You just don't know where the enemy's at until it's too late. And then, are you trained? Are you prepared to do what it takes? It's not the movies. I think, unfortunately, as much as we like to watch movies, as much as they're motivational, um, combat's not the movies. Uh, the enemy always gets a say. I know that's probably
Yep.
oversaid, but they do. And the reality is no matter how much you train or rehearse, the chances are they may get the first say, and it's how you react, which is gonna like I started watching the documentary on Cop Keaton
Mhm.
last night, that movie, which is so humbling of what we asked those soldiers.
Okay. What do people who have never commanded in combat get wrong or misunderstand about that role?
I, yeah, that's I think where I come up with the brevity answer.
Yeah.
I, you know, I I want to be careful here because we judge each other way too much.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, you wore the uniform, but you didn't go down range.
Yeah.
And let's face it, some of us, I mean, I'm guilty. Here's a pet peeve of mine, okay? Because I did get out of the Army. I was one of the officers cut, but I went down range a fourth time and volunteered because nobody else would.
Mhm.
And when it came time to be cut, the general was like, "Hey, you've done everything. You've done everything, make lieutenant colonel." But the reality is, we're keeping our guys from West Point, which makes sense. We paid the most to get them trained. ROTC guys are next, a little more money in them. OTSers, not so much. And I was like, "That's cool," but there's a lot of when I got to Kuwait on the last assignment, which is not even a tough assignment. It's long days, and you're responsible for a lot, but it's not like you're leading 192 soldiers in combat. And you look around at officers, I'm talking about O 04s and O 05s, senior NCOs without a combat badge.
Mhm.
In 14 years we were at war? How is that possible? I remember playing lacrosse in Hawaii, and a friend of mine is a Navy captain, so in '06, he's a JAG officer. Now, I understood, probably not a lot of need for JAG officers, but literally, he was like, "Hey, Wayne, what do I need to know? Because this is my first time going." As an '06, I'm like, "Well, you better listen to your NCO and hope that he's squared away, because that's
Yeah.
going to be the one that keeps you out of trouble."
Yeah.
So,
How were you able to balance mission requirements with the responsibility for your soldiers' lives? Because that's got to be a delicate dance.
knowing who is conducting the mission, understanding what is going on in their lives, right? Even though they're a long ways from home, what may be going on back home, what may be going on at the fob, what is a distraction to them. Um, we had soldiers attached to Alpha when I first got
Mm,
there, and I think their job was just forgive me. I think they were gunners. I could be wrong, but you could see the stress when I talked with them. And that was like the first thing I addressed with First Sergeant, like, "Hey, we got to rotate these people because you could tell." I mean, I can only imagine you're going to look for IEDs on a road.
yeah.
You got to be thinking every time you wake up, "Oh, this could be it." That's got to weigh on you mentally, and then weigh on you mentally when you get home.
I love that you said who was running the mission, We were a headquarters company and an MP platoon. And in the MP world, it's squad driven. And I think we had a limit on, it was like 15 or 20 minimum to roll outside the wire, depending on whether you're mounted or dismounted. Um, but I'd like to take that concept of who's running the mission and kind of apply that to real world. Like, how can someone first explain why that would matter to you as a commander? And then in the real world, that same topic, like, why is who's in charge a big deal?
They're who everybody's looking to. When the crap hits the fan, it's easy when nothing's going wrong
Right.
because we're just doing the mission. It's when the crap hits the fan. Now, don't get me wrong, I get it. My first sergeant ran that company. Okay. I'm the authority behind it. I've
Hmm.
got his back. Let me tell you, Ryan Broussard taught me a lifetime's worth of living in a short amount of time, what organization looks like, why he did what he did. And oh, by the way, there were times he'd pull me aside, not in front of everybody, say, "Hey, sir, can we talk?" Because what I was thinking wasn't the right thinking, and he didn't want to embarrass me in front of everybody.
Hmm.
Our first formation, I didn't even know how the officers were supposed to move around the formation. And I just pulled him aside and I said, "Hey, we don't do this in the Air Force. So I don't look a fool and people aren't looking at you like, what the heck? Tell me what I'm doing." And he told me it was easy. But when we're out there rolling out, like, it, you just got to know what are the key things. Like, okay, so if we get hit, what's a 9 line, right?
Hmm.
Because you got to know it. And if you don't know it, like I had a little cheater card because when you're stressed out in a situation like that, you're going to forget stuff, right? So I came up with little systems. In the civilian world, I don't know. It's all about the dollar. We'll probably talk about that more later. So it's very hard. It's very hard for me because in the military, if you weren't right, people let you know.
Yeah.
It's an officer, and I'm sure it was the same way enlisted too. But as an officer, you got yourself knocked in the dirt. Whereas in the civilian world, I see stuff all the time. I see a lack of integrity.
Mm.
I see planning. I have people all the time call me and say, "Hey, what are we doing?" And I'll tell them because I know, but it's like, why don't you call the manager? It's just a lot of times we're sent out to do things with not very much information. And it's just something that was, as an operations officer, is pounded into you is those 5 W's. If you give people 5 W's, they can do the mission.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned for Sergeant Broussard. I mean, he made Sergeant Major at like 14 years or 15 years, like just
Fast burner.
incredibly smart and one of the best NCOs I was around during my 20 years. Um, yeah, just huge shout out. I don't know if he'll ever hear this, but that's someone who definitely sticks out in my mind.
He's
Um, oh, go
no,
ahead.
he's crazy organized. Uh, yeah, the it took me too long to learn this, and there are things that I've learned that I try to share it when I meet a junior officer. I say, "Hey, let's talk if you want to talk." But as I said earlier, Ryan ran the company,
Yeah.
meaning organizationally wise, he knew who had to go where, and he just he was the first person I thanked when I made
Hmm.
major because I listened to Ryan Broussard,
Yep.
right? Like, I mean, yeah, the company did all the great things, and I thanked everybody, but he was the first person to be thanked because honestly, if I don't listen to him, maybe I'm not as successful. Maybe because as a leader, I'm the leader. Stop being so pig-headed. This man has how many years of combat experience, and you have
Hmm.
how much? Probably should be listening to him.
Yeah. And the reason I brought up the civilian application, I was a huge University of Michigan fan growing up, living in Michigan, and just the shenanigans and scandals that have come out of that university the last couple of years. The head coach of the football team did what he did, and I stopped being a fan years ago. I like Hillsdale because I coached baseball there, and I like Grand Canyon University, largest private Christian university. My wife works for them. My son's a freshman. Um, but I was very intrigued to see who they were going to pick. And I don't know the guy's name. I don't follow college football that much anymore, but apparently, whoever they hired, this guy is known for the same things that First Sergeant Broussard was known for, which is knowing his people, building a culture of excellence, and holding people to a standard.
Yeah, he uh, the biggest thing I learned was that I didn't have to yell at people.
Hmm.
You believe it or not, after he left, there were people like, "You need to yell at people more." I don't actually agree with that.
Right.
If it's your personality to be a yeller, okay. But I remember the brigade commander not yelling,
Right.
and people listen. I believe in treating people like an adult. Now, don't get me wrong. I do think that there are times that I probably should have been yelling, and there were a few times I probably did yell. But the day that I learned, if I had a problem, hey, First Sergeant, sir, can we talk? Yeah, come on, sir. And I tell him that problem, heads rolled that night.
Right.
I didn't need to yell at people. He did.
Right.
At everybody's ear.
Yeah. Yeah. This may be touchy, not sure. Are there any moments from Afghanistan that still surface when you least expect them?
Yeah. I mean, obviously getting blown up. Um, you know, I've got to constantly ask myself, what could I do differently? And Josh Brown will always, and we talk every now and then on Facebook. Um, I can remember seeing him because he shipped out, shipped
Right.
all his gear out. Didn't know if I'd see him again. We ran into each other at the PX, and he's like, "Sir, we're all just doing our jobs."
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, I didn't wake up that morning going, "Man, I know what's going to happen today." I didn't. So, but that doesn't mean I'm still. It's kind of in my being to judge myself and second guess myself.
I
So,
get that. Um, were you able to personally decompress while you were in that high stress environment, or is that something that you kind of had to hold off to until you were home?
well, the first thing I recognized when we came home, turned the company over after 20 months. I let my hair grow out just a little bit. I'm a redhead traditionally, and if I could grow hair, it's all gray now. I had no gray hair before going to Afghanistan.
Hmm.
How did I decompress? Obviously, I did PT, but First Sergeant took care of me. So, as you may or may not know, our rooms were right next to each other at the backside of the talk. And after the explosion, I would wake up yelling, and he would simply talk me down.
Hmm.
Um, I always had to leave my weapon in the office. I didn't have to. I chose to. I figured it was such a short run if I needed it. But I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and I would tell you somebody was in my room, and I would have to mentally talk myself down and remind myself, "Hey, dummy, you locked the door. There's no way possible somebody's in this room." Uh, I was a PT guy, you know. I didn't do probably as much as I wish. How about the Friday night poker game?
Right. That was great.
It was great because you got to let your hair down, right?
Right.
Um, People maybe got to see another side of you and that's kind of where I got to know Master Sergeant Davy because he was
Yeah.
really good at it. I was really good at it. It was something I prided myself in because I hate losing. Um, but I got to know other people, like even the young lady I mentioned earlier, Weir Camp. She beat me one night.
Hmm.
Oh, she had my number, and I was like, Master Sergeant Davy taught you how to play me, didn't he? Because she, there was nothing I could do. She had my number. She whooped me. So.
So, you mentioned you retired as a major. So we were in Afghanistan 10 to 11. When did you make major?
I actually that was kind of funny too. So I made major technically while I was over there,
Okay.
but didn't put it on until we got home. So thank you, S1 Chop. Uh, so I get home. As you know, we were missing a taser.
Mm,
I really wanted to find that taser before I turned the company over because I was going to get charged $800. I wasn't going to make excuses for it.
right.
My screw up, meaning no, I didn't lose it. I should have come into camp and said, turn everybody's freaking duffel bags inside out tonight. I made a mistake, and this is one of the lessons that I teach lieutenants. Your property is your property, and if you think your NCO is going to take the fall for you, I hate to tell you this, your paycheck's bigger. So, know that if you will simply lay the law down, and this actually happened later because uh, ironically, we found the taser. The taser was never lost. It was in somebody's bag.
Uh,
Ironically, in the NCO who got in trouble my first weekend as a company commander,
oh, jeez.
the squad leader, I think, uh, he had it in his bag the whole time. And here's the amazing thing. The lady from finance, I told her, hey, just let me know when the $800 coming out of the paycheck so I can let the wife know so that we don't screw up her budget. She calls me up and says, hey, sir, we're going to take that money out tomorrow. Not a
Wow.
problem, ma'am. So I see Moose out in the hallway. And again, I believe in God. There are no coincidences.
Hmm.
So what do you think happened to Taser? What do you mean, sir? Well, I'm getting ready to pay $100 for Taser, and it was MP's hands. He goes, nobody told you? Nobody told me what, Moose? Well, the Taser was in so and so's bag, and they put it back in the box. Did anybody tell the investigative officer? I don't think so. Did anybody tell the new company commander? And that was like a kind of a kick in the nuts. But I called the investigative officer. I said, I need you to go over and confirm what I've just been told, and then call finance, who's literally getting. So the next call is to finance. Hey, ma'am, give me 24 hours, please. Here's why. She said, not a problem. And boom, taken care of. Uh, I had a set of, so we had the right number of nods, but serial number was duplicated, which
Mm.
meant had two nods with the same number. And as you know, there were issues with plates and people were doing etchings or some craziness. So I learned my lesson from the taser. Not soon enough, but I learned it. And I said, I put out, y'all got 24 hours. I'm starting an investigation next day.
Hmm.
And an NCO that I do like and respect came to me next day and he head down. Sir, it was me. Let me tell you why I did what I did. I said, I got that. So we fixed it, and property is crazy because in the Air Force is not nothing like the Army. I mean, I'll never forget. I'm a lieutenant, and we had a side room of crap. And I said, I need an inventory of this stuff, and my NCOs kept putting it off. And one day I came in at 5 o'clock in the morning. I pulled everything out of there, and I put it in our office. And I said, I'll have 100% inventory by the end of the day. And they came to me and halfway through, we got it, sir. Here you go, 100%. I said, are you sure it's 100%? Yes, sir. I said, well, you might want to go talk to the E8 because I gave her a computer that used to be in that room,
Mm.
and that got their attention. But in the Army, it's like, if it ain't on 2062, there's no telling where it's at, right?
Right.
So, um, yeah.
So you mentioned you were part of a group of officers that was let go. If you
Yep.
can expand on that a little bit, and then what was your transition out of the army like? Expectations versus reality.
So I'm in Kuwait. I volunteered to go because another major was like, I can't go. I got heart issues. Uh, I worked nighttime ops. We were dealing with ISIS and Yazidis. I had actually volunteered to go to Iraq because they needed a major up there, and I had experience. Didn't work out. That's fine. But somebody comes in and talks like, "Hey, Styles, you need to go see the 2 star tomorrow," and I'm like, "Did I do something wrong? Did I make somebody mad? What up?" And they go, "No, no." And about a couple hours later, somebody's like, "Hey, man, are you tracking they're cutting officers?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but I was told I wasn't getting cut." Because literally 6 months prior, I'm at Schofield Barracks, and I think it's Colonel Vincent or Colonel Douglas, I can't remember the name, super awesome, amazing division operations guy. He's like, Styles, you ain't getting cut. You've done everything to make Lieutenant Colonel. You've checked all the boxes. You're good to go. And the reason they do that is if you're soup sandwich, they say, hey, get your resume up tight. You
Yeah.
might want to be looking for another job. Just being realistic, right? And I remember looking at him going, well, that sucks. And he goes, what are you talking about? I go, sir, respectfully, I've deployed numerous times. I've been away from my family for 6 years. I'm okay with going and being a civilian and taking what the Army's taught me. So fast forward, I go into the general's office. There's a civilian with him, and he goes, "Hey, Wayne." He gets like soft shoe shuffle, trying to ease the burden of he's getting ready to say, "Hey, you're gone."
Mhm.
He tells me I'm gone. I'm like, "That's freaking awesome, sir. I'd kiss you if I could." And I think he thought I was crazy. He goes, "What up?" And I said, "Respectfully, sir, the Army's giving me a skill set that I know that I can get a job ASAP and do something." And get it, that might have been a little brash, but I knew immediately I wanted to be a JRTC instructor. It's on the website while I'm in Kuwait. I'm making contacts while I'm in Kuwait. And so literally I'm in the office doing my final out at Shaw Air Force Base because that's where Third Army is. I'm getting a phone call from a school in Virginia. "Hey, when can you come do an interview?" I said, "I'll be there next week." It was like an 8 hour drive from Tennessee over. Uh, Interviewed. I only wanted 2 weeks. So they literally called me like, I don't know, within 72 hours, whatever it was. I'm in a tree stand in Kentucky. I'm whispering on the phone. They're like, "Hey, why are you talking so quiet?" I said, "Because I'm deer hunting in Kentucky." And they go, "Oh, well, when can you be here?" And I said, "I can be there Monday." And it was a good first job. Love teaching JRTC. Uh, I do miss it to a degree, but I think I've told you this before. The relationship between that officer and senior NCO, your peers.
Mhm.
But again, officers, if something goes south, the officer's in charge, whether you like it or not. And some NCOs don't like that. They don't, as I've described it to other people, NCOs don't like officers telling them how to make their chili.
Right.
So, but for me, transition was very different. I remember looking at the general and saying, "I can leave in a week." And the civilian was like, "No, no, no." And I'm like, "You just cut me. You said you didn't need me. That implies you have a plan for replacing me." And I don't remember how long I stayed there, but I got home. I literally was sleeping in the back of not back of well, my truck had a two-seater thing, so I could sleep in the back of the truck to save money. I worked nighttime in the operation cell, and daytime I did all my, what do you call it, checklists, for
Okay.
getting out. And again, no retirement ceremony. I didn't want. It's not that I didn't want one. It's like I'm not going to ask my family to drive from Tennessee to South Carolina for me to walk across the stage and whoo, just wasn't who I was. I literally got my flag, got in my pickup truck, and drove home. And
Wow.
so literally it was just Wayne Stiles the next day until I put the uniform back on for JRTC.
What how did was there any difference going from sir and commander to being just Wayne?
No, I think because I'm kind of down to, yes, people everywhere. There are plenty of soldiers in the area that know me. Some that I play golf with that are, just retired soldiers, but they know who I am. And they say, "Sir," and I'm like, "Knock
Mhm.
it off. My name is Wayne." Uh, I'm a down to earth guy. Like, I mean, my family never called me sir. And I can promise you, my two siblings that I'll see in 24 hours, 40, they don't call me sir. They call me Wayne the Pain. Um, that's just me being down to earth. I would like to hope and think, I work for Lieutenant Colonel. Uh, he was a enlisted MP and lieutenant officer of logistics, and I call him sir every time I see him.
Right.
It's a respect thing, but I don't expect that for me. That's just he's given me a job, one that I appreciate. So that's my way of saying thank you to him.
Same. With you, I did my company commander from Hawaii, who was my commander in Iraq the second time. I interviewed Dave Grossman. He's a retired lieutenant colonel, West Point psychologist. Like, it's very ingrained in me to still say sir or ma'am. Um, and everyone's like, no, no, just call me, call me by my first name. Like, that's so weird. Like that, you in my snapshot timeline, that's who you are.
I got a
You,
friend of mine. His name is Jason, retired Air Force colonel. He looks like Bull from Night Court. And he finally was like, "Dude, you either start calling me Jason or we're just going to stop." You know?
yeah,
And I guess I think what it is you got to get to know that person.
right.
Like I still talk to he was Colonel Jenkins for us,
Hmm.
but he's two-star Jenkins. When I was actually in Hawaii, we still talk. I'm never going to call him Sean.
Right.
Expect him to reach through the computer and choke me. Like I mean, so.
Yeah, I get that. So your runway from the military to civilian life, it was pretty short.
Hmm. Yes, about a
Did
month.
you did you did you have time to reflect and prepare mentally, or has that been something you've had to do on the back end?
Uh, I don't think I gave my time. I hit the ground running, knowing I needed a job. I really wanted to be a JRTC instructor because I was a school teacher prior to coming back in the
Hmm.
military, and it seemed to make a good fit. It did for the most part. I mean, I did it for 5 years. Uh, I guess maybe I don't believe in luck. I believe in God. You know, if you don't get the job, maybe God's trying to say, "Hey, don't need you here. I need you someplace else." You know, and that sometimes that's hard because we think this job fits me perfect. I should be here. Uh, I like I said, I taught for 5 years, and I've always been able to get a job. You know, but I'll say that's by the grace of God, not because Wayne is super smart, because he's not, or he works hard because he does. Just things have kind of lined up for me.
I love that more than you probably know. Um, Caitlin and I moved from Michigan to Arizona this summer in July of, or actually late June of 2025. And it was for a job that didn't pan out. And we are in agreement 100%. It was a God moment. He needed to bring us here for a specific reason, which I believe is the church that we go to. Has been extremely impactful in both of our lives. And took away a phenomenal opportunity to get me to where he wants me to be, which is what I'm doing now, which is the ability to have conversations with amazing people, share stories of trials, tribulations, and triumphs from military service and how to move forward and grow as individuals. Um, so I'm very much under the same boat. It's by the grace of God, not anything I've done. But I had the ability to listen and pray for it, and when the opportunity presented itself, recognize it and then move forward. Um, so, what are you doing now? What work are you in now?
So I drive a dump truck uh, called Pete Family here in Clarksville. I drove an 18 wheeler for 3 years, 3.5 years. It was okay, but again, it's about one thing: how much money are you bringing me?
Hmm.
You know, Yeah. I mean, they do take all the risk. Colonel Pete, he owns. I mean, he started the company out by I think building buildings, and he recognized instead of subcontracting out dump trucks to come move stuff and bring stuff in, why not just have my own dump trucks? Which turned into, oh, we can move clay, we can move rock, we can do this, we can do that. So I actually wanted to be a chauffeur.
Okay.
Didn't want to drive, definitely didn't want to drive an 18 wheeler. I actually struggled at the schoolhouse, which is funny because Sergeant Allen, I don't know if you remember him, he
Hmm.
was a support platoon sergeant. He was one of my instructors. I don't blame the school for anything. Basically, the truck's here if you want to learn how to drive it, drive it. Uh, there were some there were some really good NCOs because I struggled with some things, and I just wanted to be a chauffeur, but I needed this CDL to get a Class F to become a chauffeur. I already had a job lined up, so I ended up passing, and I immediately get hired on to be a chauffeur. But I'd never seen so much disorganization in an element.
Wow.
It's scary. Like you go check out your limo and you pre-trip to make sure it's squared away, and it's not squared away. It doesn't have gas, and you're like, "Holy crap! I got to go get gas." Uh, so I did that for a month. I made really good money. I enjoyed it. I just didn't like who I worked for. And
Hmm.
I guess maybe what I should have done is looked at other chauffeur companies. But one day I'm literally driving past a banner that says CDL drivers needed. So I stopped in and asked a bunch of questions. And I said, "Hey, I'm gonna come back tomorrow, but I want to bring my daughter so she can understand why I'm asking the questions I'm asking." and you can interview me. And I was hired right away. My job was to move inedible ragu from, I think it was Owensboro, Kentucky to Nashville, where they took all the water out of it, and then they had the veggies left, and that got sent to the farmers for fertilizer. Literally 3 years of driving, 2 hours one way, 2 hours back, dump, go back up, go back down, hopefully dump before you go home for the night. Uh, Anywhere from 10 to 12-hour days. Traffic could make it a 14-hour
Mhm.
day. The hard part was you drove to Nashville, which was basically 40 minutes. And then now you got to drive home. And if it's during the worst part of Nashville traffic, now it's an hour.
Right.
And it's like, crap, this sucks. So I ended up finding Heed Family, which is 13 miles away. It's off of, not, it's kind of where Fort Campbell Boulevard and 79 split. So it's kind of right there. It takes me 20 minutes to get there in the morning. It does take about 30 minutes at home because of traffic, but it's a good job. It pays decent. Everybody thinks they deserve to get paid more.
Right.
I've learned to be content with where I'm at because I do get retirement and disability.
So driving a truck isn't something a lot of people would associate with a high ranking officer after a military career. I know the answer because I know you, but have the snide comments or anything like that, swayed you?
No, again, because I think I'm down to earth. I'd like to think I'm humble. Uh, I worked in some management. I ran three homes for the disabled. I love working with disabled
Yeah.
people. I'm a lacrosse coach in college, saw something in me a long time ago, or maybe he was desperate for workers. I don't know which. But I worked for him in upstate New York, and I enjoyed it. Just trying to make other people's lives better.
Mhm.
So job opening came up, uh, and I got hired right away because of my experience. Working with disabled is great. Working with the others aren't. I mean, when I
Right.
say others, the people that are freaking lazy, the
Yeah.
people that you beg to come to work that, oh, by the way, signed up to do the job. And I worked probably 70 plus hours a week. Even like some of my fellow managers, it was like they would do just enough.
Mhm.
A perfect example, I went to a home that wasn't even my home, and there was a front walk, and the resident inside, you literally have to have one person on each side of him because he was unstable. And there was a hole in the frickin' the ramp going up to the house. And I'm like, well, what if there was a fire at 2 a.m.?
Yeah.
Remember that there's a hole? So I'm literally calling the maintenance guy, going, and this isn't my home. I shouldn't have to. I should be like, hey, dude, why don't you take care of your stuff?
Mhm.
But it's like, no, it's about the residents. So you call maintenance, hey, I really need you over here time now to see what's going on. It just got so disheartening. The pay was awful. But if you focus on working with the residents, I mean, maybe that's what I should have done. It's just been a, but I've talked to other officers, they get frustrated.
Mhm.
What I'm talking about. Again, it go back to the people that kind of duck out of deployments. How many people right now are in the Army are only there for a paycheck? How many people, if that deployment comes up, they're going to find a reason not to go?
Yeah.
And I saw it in both branches. I saw, I mean, in the Air Force, I had a guy come up to me. There was a deployment to Qatar, freaking Qatar, which is like they got ice cream, right? They
Right.
got, they had alcohol, they had a pool. Oh, my wife's got cancer. So you pull his name from the list. Does anybody actually check to see if she has cancer?
Right.
Oh, the name's off the list, right? That's all he really cared. I mean, it was just, it's like you signed up to do the freaking job. So,
What would you say to someone who equates rank or title with worth? That was something I struggled with personally. I told a story. Actually, I think it's in the book. I don't know if I've told it on the podcast. When Caitlin and I started dating, when you would walk into my house, you come in the left side. It was my love me wall. I had all of the plaques, awards, my wings, my shadow box. Like I was so afraid that my military service wouldn't count. And the deep rooted issues, I didn't know who I was without that being the focal point. So what would you just say to someone who equates rank or title with their worth?
And I can say this because I went through it, not the rank title part. Okay. If your identity is based on rank or title, when it is taken from you, you will go through an identity crisis.
Absolutely.
So, no, when they took my rank away from me or job title away from me, no, I didn't go through an identity crisis. So, a lot of people don't know. I used to be really good at archery. Um, I have a thing that's called target panic, which means I can draw back the bow. I can do everything, but hold the pin in the middle. My pin sits way below, and it's a mental breakdown, right? Yeah, I could fight through that. Put archery before God. Want to have an identity crisis? Put something before God. If you wake up in the morning, I'm just going to give you an example. You wake up in the morning and all you think about is practice or going to the next tournament, which is what I did for years. Um, that's your God. When you wake up in the morning, you should first go, I'm awake. God's got purpose for me because he could have taken me in the middle of the night because he does that. How can I serve you today, God? And don't get me wrong, Kevin, I fail at this.
Hmm.
Steer it's easy to wake up and go, okay, what stand am I going to go hunt? You know, um, or even work. We do allow work to get in the way. And I'm a believer. Things that I've learned is that crisis of faith is there to get your attention, to get you back focused on God.
I love that. There's a movie on, I know it's on Netflix. I think it might be on Amazon Prime. It's called The Forge. It's a
Yep.
Christian movie by the Kendrick brothers. I love everything they do. Again, guys, I'm not sponsored. I just share what I like. And it's that story. It's a young man, 19, doesn't have a father, trying to find his place in the world. And his idol was video games. And once he found a mentor and that person started discipling him, he realized he was putting video games before. And it's a simple analogy, but if you're targeting, a younger male population, that's an easy one that people can wrap their heads around. And I think they delivered that message very well, which you just delivered and explained extremely
So
well.
let me add this. So we're in Afghanistan, and Major Albright has this big grin on his face, and I never had to really deal with him much. And I literally was like, "Hey, sir, did I do something wrong?" Because I'm like, "Why is he coming to yell at me?" And he goes, "No, dude, you made the list." I'm like, "Okay, what list?" He's like, "You made the major list. You made the next rank." And I was taken aback. So I because I've been around officers. Again, I don't know for the enlisted. 'Cause I know it's different, but I've been around those officers that were all about the rank.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer. What if you go to work every day and you do the best job that you can, but you still don't get promoted?
Hmm.
Some bad person? I had a buddy that did not get promoted to major. He was a logistics officer. Somebody I look up to, thought he was better than me, but he didn't get it. I want to stay grounded and realize that rank comes from God. It's
Yeah.
a blessing, but also the responsibility that comes from it.
Absolutely. And I love it because it kind of leads into this next question. How has your faith or your inner compass played a role in navigating this season of life?
So, like I said earlier, didn't have a lot of founding, foundation. So, when COVID hit, it was like I felt used again. I was driving an
Hmm.
18 wheeler. Look, the great part about it was there was nobody on the highway. You could go as fast as you wanted and get stuff done, but you realize the boss is trying to pump you up. Thank you for what you're doing. You're so awesome. I'm making you money, so let's leave it at that. But you feel expendable.
Hmm.
That's what I learned. Because if COVID really was, I mean, don't get me wrong, COVID was bad. People died. And for the first part of COVID, it was Like you didn't touch doors. Is a dry, you just kind of stayed to yourself. And oh, by the way, I had COVID and drove 2 weeks.
Mhm.
It was exhausting because I would do my first run and be like, okay, I got this. And that second run, be like, dear God, just get me home. Um, so I had a friend, I don't know if it was before COVID or during COVID. His name's Pastor Reed Talman, pastor of a church in Patoka, Illinois. Played lacrosse at Liberty after I did. So we don't even have a connection other than alumni games. Something I started was old guys versus young guys
Oh, I love
for
that.
homecoming weekend. And we just got to know each other. I can't even explain why. He might remember why. Bottom line, he started discipling me. No kidding. What are you reading? What do you got questions about? Those things I talked about earlier. What are the issues? And trust me, as I read, because I teach my own kids this because they're older and they don't think they need to read the
Yep.
Bible. And I'm like, they've seen problems in the church.
Mhm.
Okay. And my kids don't go to church. And it's hard because you've taught them a certain value system. I understand why they're frustrated, but I tell them, if you'll start reading your Bible, you know what's going to happen? You're going to start having questions.
Yeah.
And you're going to come to somebody and ask those questions. That's what happened to me. Today I read in Ezra. When I was out deer hunting, plenty of time to read your Bible. Read a few verses, look up, take it all in, think. You know, uh, so Ezra, I just finished obviously Kings. I'm sorry, Chronicles, and before that's Kings. And you're looking at all the insanity happening in our world. Guess what? Been happening for more than 2,000 years,
Yeah.
right? Leadership issues, kings who start off following God, but then start following somebody else's God, and then God's
Mhm.
got to bring them back into play, right? We are no different. So my faith has grown. I've asked a lot of questions of different people. So I've got about not just Reed. Reed is the main person. About once a week, we talk for an hour. Uh, Whenever I get a question, I want perspective, not just one person's
Mhm.
perspective. I know about 10 different pastors or people attached to leadership in the faith, and I ask questions and I read books. Kevin, I'm not a reader. I'd rather watch the movie, but I've read some good books, and they're very humbling because you know I ask questions like, "Hey, I have no problems giving money. Where is it going?"
Mhm.
Um, I keep hearing that 90% of the money that goes to missions is used in the same 10% of the world, the same 10% of the world
Wow.
that's already reached. 90% of them, I don't know this is truth, but it was told to me at church by a missionary. Okay, so I don't think he's lying.
Right.
From
It's boots on
military
the ground. Yeah.
mindset, that doesn't make sense because we consider that spiritual warfare. Well, what commander would put 90% of his resources in 10% that's already being taken care of? And it's like, so then I just ask, are we really spending and doing as we should be? I got a friend of mine who spent 10 years underground church in China, building it up. Now he leads and teaches pastors to go to places like Iran, right? Where being a Christian is not something that you
Mhm.
just talk about. And I love getting his perspective because a missionary's perspective is going to be different than a pastor's perspective. And there is a lot of problems in the American church today. COVID exposed that. When the church
Yeah.
shut down, it wasn't the government's place to tell the church to shut down. If a church shut down, it's because the pastor, through leading of the Holy Spirit and his elders, if they have them, say, hey, time out. This is why we're closing. We're gonna let the church know this. It's not the government's place to come tell them to shut down. And unfortunately, what happened is the church shut down. And I feel like maybe gave the government this like, hey, we can do this.
Mhm.
And there's some we have separation of church and state.
Yeah. And I understand when you mention your kids having a problem with the church. Um, Over the Christmas season, my wife and I went to a very well known church here in Arizona. They put on a giant Christmas show, and Nothing about the show had anything to do with Christ or Christianity. It was a giant money grab, and I felt so slimy.
Yeah.
Um, I'd never experienced that. The church we went to in Michigan, they did the same thing, but it was the story of the birth of Jesus, and it was phenomenal, and everything made sense. And like, oh, it was just I felt gross and used, and even at the end when they do tell the story, it's like 15 minutes. You're there for almost 3 hours. They bring out animals and all kinds of shenanigans. Literally was like, you're just washing money. Why are there live camels and zebras and like, oh, we have, I literally felt like it was a money laundering operation that I just watched in person.
So the belief is 80% of the churches in America just aren't even teaching the gospel anymore.
Hmm.
You know, um, the gospel is we are sinners.
Yep.
That sin comes from Adam and Eve, specifically Adam,
Right.
but Garden of Eden. But God's got a plan. He's got Israel. Israel's supposed to be stand alone from the rest of the world and be the light that shows the rest of the world there is a God and we need them. And the way we take care of our sin is we sacrifice a perfect, spotless animal, a lamb specifically.
Hmm.
And but then God has a plan of sending His Son to do that, to take that place, so that they don't have to do that anymore. As you hear sin spoken of in general terms, not wanting to point out anything, and it's kind of like you're like, I think I know what he's talking about. If a pastor can't just stand up and say what's been put on his heart, which is in God's word. That's another thing. If God's word isn't being used to direct the message, then you probably need to find someplace else to go. Um, the thing that drives me nuts today is you ready for this? There's like 45,000 denominations.
Right.
One Jesus, one Holy Spirit, one God, 45,000 denominations. And I heard somebody say, well, denominations is like denominator, and denominator means division. That's the problem with the church today is we've taken a message and split it up because I don't agree with this or I don't agree with that. God didn't ask you to agree with His word. He asked you to read it and do what it says inside of it. And yes, it's hard. It's incredibly hard, and it should be convicting. But unfortunately, and here's the other part, like you kind of hinted at it. Well, I need more people. In order to get more people, I need more programs. That's not in the Bible. Because if I got more programs, I'll get more people. If I get more people, I'll get more money,
Hmm.
which puts on more programs, which gets more people, which gets more. It's just kind of a circle, and unfortunately, it's what's cost me to read my Bible more
Hmm.
because I've seen some things that made me go, time out, wait a second. I was always a simpleton about my faith, but now that I'm digging in and reading, I'm going, wait, time out. Something's not quite right here. And just we should be respectful about the questions that we ask, and so anywho.
Yeah, I like that. It's gonna the money thing is gonna lead into the next topic, which is legacy, and I like to start wrapping up the show with legacy. Um, a lot of people I talk to, they want to leave generational wealth and things like this. But when you think about legacy, what is the legacy you want to be high? What matters most to you?
My family's success, that's it. My kids, my wife, because I assume they'll be around before me. I'm going to assume I'm going to go first, but uh, they're first knowing who God is,
Hmm.
that Christ died for them, and they had a commitment when they were younger. I believe they're in that prodigal stage.
Hmm.
And guess what? The prodigal returns
Yep.
because the God will be right there chasing after him. And I hope that they'll see that sooner than later. One of the things I take ownership of as a dad is I wish I relied too much on the church to teach my kids. Did I teach my kids? Yes. But I still relied on the church a little too much.
Yeah.
There was no need for that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Justin Clark,
Yep.
he's taken control of that. It's something I applaud him very much on. Um, in my book, I talk about defining success, and when I was in Germany in my previous marriage, um, my ex-wife and her siblings, her stepdad made sure they did not incur a single penny of debt when they went to college. He paid for college, and that was the first time I understood what defining success is, and then it's also a moving target. So with Ty in college, he's got my post 9/11. Juliana will use my post 9/11. My first goal for them as they enter adulthood is if they choose the college route, they will not incur a cent of debt. And then it shifts and changes on what's going on. But again, you're we're batting 1,000. No one has said I want to leave a ton of money to my kids and have my shadow box be what people remember me for. It's the positive
Right.
impact I made in other people's lives. Um, what advice would you give to an officer or an NCO who is approaching retirement or contemplating getting out of the military and is quietly anxious about what comes next?
Uh, don't assume you're a shoe in for a job.
Mm,
How does your skill set help the civilian world? I think too often we think we have, there are certain jobs in the military that set you up, but not necessarily. I mean, just because you can go blow stuff up as an engineer, that doesn't make you an engineer in the civilian world. It's very different. I got a nephew that's doing that now. Know how to sell yourself? No, who get it's who you know that gets you the job. It's
yep.
what you know that gets promoted. Make sure your resume is updated. LinkedIn, if that's what you're into, uh, go to all appointments. And I know this guy. I talked to a friend of mine who was a chief master sergeant, which is a command sergeant major in Air Force. You never know which one's appointment. Important because he said he went. It was right before lunch, and they said, "Hey, we got this next meeting, but you can go to lunch." And he said almost everybody went to lunch. He said it was like one of the most important meetings.
Wow.
Right. And so no one's going to hand you a job just because you got that DD Form 214
Yep.
and served honorably. And, because honestly, I think we sell that a lot. Hey, soldiers show up on time. They've right uniform, right attitude, up, and they're going to be always get the job. I taught JRTC. I told my cadets, you try to get a job in the military that will help you when you get in the outside world. You want to be a good infantryman, and that's not an infantryman. I used to be an infantryman when I was in the guard. I loved it. I think those guys are amazing. But how many trigger pillars do we need outside of the army?
Right.
Yes, we need them as contractors over doing some crazy things, but there's not that many of them. So look at what you're doing in the military and then figure out that skill set. How does it apply to the real world?
Yeah, I love that. And find someone who can take the language of the military and put it into applicable civilian terms. That has been something I've struggled with a lot. Kay was kind enough to send my resume to USA Cares at Fort Knox, and Paula, who's, I think she's one of the head, she took time out of her busy day to help revamp it. And the stuff that I thought was wildly important didn't even make the resume. I'm like, oh man, I do not know what I'm doing. Um,
Sure.
and I mean, that's why I started off in the law enforcement realm. And as I've grown and matured and figured out who I'm supposed to be, I've been able to, lift and shift fire to new professions. But that's tough. It is really hard to think this. You're told all these things: get a college degree, serve your country, get out honorably. You're a hot commodity, but really, it's who you know. And I hate LinkedIn with a passion. It's become more useful since I started a business and connecting with other people, but it's toxic. And some of the people who served and got out before you, they are gatekeeping like Schmeagol and the ring from Lord of the Rings. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to help you. They found their success and they will not help you at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. You know, the civilian world is just different.
It's
And
ruthless.
I warn people all the time. Now, the Air Force is more, I think personally, is more set up because it's run like a business. So they have maybe a heads up on the Army, maybe the Marine Corps. but I still talk to those guys. And the things that you brought out, because that conversation, I mean, I had conversations with several people, and I'm like, hey, how'd it go for you? And then you remember how you said, general officers and O 06s, well, they'll tell you that everything's great, but they haven't retired yet. So how do they know it's great? And ironically, I asked a friend of mine who's an O 06 at the Pentagon in the Navy. I said, hey, tell me about your retirement thing. And he goes, dude, it's awesome. And I'm like, darn, it's just like Kevin said. They don't know. Somebody told them it was awesome, so it must be awesome. It's something that needs to be fixed, and that's why I think you're the right person. If we just, again, who do you know? Who do we get you connected to get these ideas? Honestly, a meeting with Pete Hegseth probably going to be a little tough. Maybe a
Right.
meeting with Sean Ryan. So,
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah, I love that. And this last question, it's something I really it's some of that retrospective internal journey. What would you tell your younger self about how your story unfolds?
no one owes you anything.
Mm,
All that in a bag of chips. I, I, I mean, I had a tough childhood growing up.
mhm,
I've been blessed to be that D minus, to have gone to 13 different countries in some way, shape, or form. Um, Seen a lot of things, been a part of some amazing things. I would tell myself, reading your Bible more, but know why you're reading it. Establish a prayer life. Find a mentor that cares about you mentally, physically, and spiritually.
mhm.
I'm blessed. I got a command sergeant major, division command sergeant major from the 101st, who we play golf together, and he'll challenge me.
Yeah.
That's good. You need that. Understand that you don't know much, but that God will put people in your way to help you. Listen to them. Life is a gift, it's short, and there is accountability for it. Not because you can earn heaven, but there is accountability for what you did and the time that you were given here. If you wrap your identity in anything other than Christ, when God removes it, you will go through a crisis, but it's to get your attention. Stay in touch with those that have impacted you and allow them to continue to breathe into your life and breathe into their life. And don't work your life away, because in some ways I have.
I love that. I mean, what just a bombshell of experience and knowledge to wrap up the conversation. My favorite two are going to be the last two you mentioned, which are people breathing into your life and breathing in theirs. I use the analogy that, be a fountain, not a drain. I have
Yes.
my core four. We text every single day. I wake up. First thing I do is I go onto Instagram. There's this. It's called Success Juice. It's crazy, funny, motivational, and that's. I send it to them that hey, I'm alive, and it's motivational. Have fun. And I mean, we share heartaches and heartbreaks and success stories. And don't work, man. Your a job posting will be up before your obituary. It's just a job.
That's right.
It's just a job. Don't check your email at home. The new job I have, I'm director of security for a school. I don't I my they have my phone number so they can text me if stuff changes at 6 in the morning when the school floods. I
Yeah,
don't I don't have the email on my laptop at home. It's not that important. Nothing about that job is so important.
that's
It's
right.
not that I don't care, but my wife needs Kevin.
Yep.
My kids need dad. The
That's
dogs
exactly.
need dad.
Yep.
Like that's
And
it.
they sacrificed when every time you went away for the country,
Yep.
every time you went away TDY, every time training, it just went out to the field. You know, you don't get that time back. And
Yeah.
I can tell you that there's been an impact to my family.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, Wayne, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule during a limited break to share your story. It truly meant a lot for me to have you on.
Yes, sir.
Wow. Wayne, thank you again for coming on the show and being willing to go there. I appreciate your honesty, your humility, and the way you just keep things real. Here are my takeaways from the conversation. Number one, if your identity is built on rank or title, you are going to feel it when that's taken away. So this episode is going to be dropped during the Winter Olympics, which are in Italy. And that brought me back to my childhood, specifically the movie Cool Runnings. There's a scene where the Jamaican bobsled team's coach, played by John Candy, is talking with the driver, Doris, who asks the coach why he cheated in the Olympics back in the day. The coach explains it and emphasizes a very important point regarding identity. And he tells Doris, a gold medal is a wonderful thing, but if you're not enough without it, you'll never be enough with it. And I think a lot of our identity crisis as we transition from the military to the private sector, civilian world, real world, whatever vernacular you want to use to call it, when you take that uniform off for the last time, you discover something that has been characterized as decision fatigue. You go from a life where nearly everything was structured and decided for you. You don't have to pick out your clothes. You wear your uniform. You're told where to be, right place, right time, right uniform, and why you're doing it. And then all of a sudden, you go from that to a world of unlimited choices with no clear playbook or instructions. Even small decisions start to feel heavy. And without realizing it, that constant mental load can leave you drained, frustrated, and questioning who you are outside the role you wore uh, every single day. The second is that faith is not a label, it's a foundation. It shows up in how you live, how you lead, um, how you came back from seasons where you were tested. And lastly, again, legacy is not in your plaques, your shadow box, or your resume. It's the people you impact. No guest has come on and said, oh, I want to be known for a ton of money, my cars, or anything. It's about making a positive impact in the lives of others. So if this episode helped you or it resonated with you, please do me a favor, share it with somebody, especially someone approaching retirement, going through transition, or quietly wrestling with identity on the other side of the uniform. If you are struggling or know someone who is, call 988, reach out, ask someone for help. Just ensure that they're a fountain and not a drain. And never forget the world is better with you in it. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Enduring Mindset Podcast. If you're not already, please give us a like, follow, and share on the usual suspects: Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube. Our handle is at enduring underscore mindset underscore enterprise. And check out our website, www.enduringmindsetenterprise.com. You can find podcast episodes on there. The cover of the book is on there, and the newly added Enduring Mindset Foundation, our 501c3 nonprofit arm, which we're excited to start funding and helping out veterans in another way. Until next time, onward, forward, fall out.